The projectors that come with the kit are side specific in that they have a notch cut out of one of the top corners. In this case, it's for the right side headlight. It's cut out of the top left. And the reason for that is so they can clear this aiming adjuster pivot point right here. So you're going to put the projector in from the back side of the bracket. And these brackets, which come pre-mounted on the projectors, the mounting holes on them should line up with the mounting holes from the original projector. So we're going to go ahead and use the screws that came with the kit. Put them in on the top bracket. They should thread themselves into the bracket themselves. And on the bottom bracket, you'll use the nuts and put them on the back side. It'll all tie together real nice and tight. Once the projector is secured to the bracket, you're then going to go back to the main housing so that you can mount your ballast onto the bottom. Even the halogen version of the WRX headlights has bosses built into the bottom of it for the OEM Matsushita ballast. So we're going to go ahead and get that mounted on there next. When the ballasts come, the igniter cord, which is this mesh cord, is already attached to it. So to get that off, what you're going to need to do, you'll just depress this little clip right here on the side. This just pops out, unclips itself. There's also one screw right here which you have to undo. Make sure that's going the right way. Don't lose the screw, it's pretty small. Just comes off. Put this off to the side for right now. The kit also comes with a rubber O-ring. This is so that the ballast can make a watertight seal with the bottom of the housing. So you're going to need that here in a second. You put the ballast igniter in from the top of the headlight through the hole, put it through the bottom. So this rests inside, and from there, put the O-ring on and put the plug back into the ballast. The holes should line up so that they go into the 3 holes in the bottom of the housing, and you'll be able to mount those with the screws that come with it. So get this all screwed back in here, put the O-ring on, and you should be all set. After you have the ballast mounted in there, you can go ahead and put your reflector assembly back into the housing. The first screw that you're going to want to put in is the one that comes out of the bottom of this pivot, this ball joint type socket here. That's the one that you drilled the hole for earlier, because basically it's just impossible to get to without putting it in first. So just go ahead and drop that in there, and then go ahead and line up all of the aiming adjusters with their screws inside the headlight. And from there, go ahead and use that 6mm socket to go ahead and tighten these back on. This cable right here is for the bi-xenon solenoid. You're going to want to pass that over to the high beam side of the headlight before you screw this in all the way. That'll just make connecting it to the high beam circuit a little bit easier later on. So I just pass that through. It's coming out the side that has the rubber grommet on it, or will. So I got those 2 aiming adjusters screwed back in. I'm going to go ahead and screw in the bolt that I put in earlier. Put the one back in the top. You should be good to go. So we got the bulb holder back in place, socket here, bi-xenon solenoid input on the high beam side. We're going to go ahead and reassemble the back side of the headlight housing here. There's all kinds of stuff that we took off earlier. First thing that we're going to do is put in our bulb. So the bulb holder just screws on, it's just threaded onto the back of the projector here. When you remove this part, you'll find that there is an O-ring, which just fell into the headlight, right here. A metal O-ring and a rubber O-ring. The bulb will go in first. Of course, with any bulb, you want to make sure that you clean it first. Make sure there's no contaminants on the glass. Go ahead and put it in, return while you're down. The metal O-ring will go on first. You'll just have to slide that on, rotate it so that it goes over the locking tabs for the ballast. Then the rubber piece has a chamfered side to it. The angled side or the chamfered side goes in first. So just put that on, pass it over the bulb, get that seated in there, and then you can go ahead and put the cap back on here. Just moderate pressure. You don't need to make sure it's too tight. From there, you can just go ahead and tuck in the igniter. That twists onto the bulb like that. And the housing cap over on this side is ready to be reinstalled. This is the top. Twists on just like stock. Over on this side, we have the positive and ground for the bi-xenon solenoid on the new projector. With the projector, you'll have a socket, plastic socket, and 2 rubber seals that comes along with it. So you'll need to install those parts onto the end here. Just put the rubber grommets on first, pass them over the metal pins. And then from there, these are just going to clip into the plastic socket. I usually like to use a needle nose pliers to pull them through. It just makes it a lot easier. Okay, that's good to go. The original rubber boot that we took off is going to go back on. The wiring will go on the inside of it. Press this back around here. And then go ahead and reinstall the plastic cap that goes on the back here. So at this point we can go ahead and do all the wiring on the back side of the headlight housing. The first thing is you can reinstall the input pigtail on the Matsushita ballast. That just clips in here. This is going to provide power to the ballast later, and it's going to go to the relay harness, the output from it that came with the kit. Put that away. The next thing is going to be the high beam splitter. And on one side there's going to be a side with 2 stripes with 1 stripe. The side with 2 stripes is going to go to your original halogen high beam light bulb. The side with 1 stripe is going to go to the bi-xenon solenoid connector that we poked out the back there. Just leave that dangling for now. We can go ahead and reinstall all the bulbs and everything on the back. Halogen high beam bulb. And this is the original wiring for the halogen light bulb. We're not going to need this anymore. It's going to provide the input power for our relay harness because this is the H11 connector. So we'll leave this dangling for now as well. And we can just go ahead and remount the main multi-pin connector on the back of the housing where we removed it before we opened up the headlight earlier. Last thing we have to do over here is hook up the halogen high beam bulb and the bi-xenon solenoid. So just remove the original connector from the bulb, just unclips. Like that. And then it'll go into this one here. And then back into the bulb. Good. Okay, all the wiring on the back side of the headlight is good to go. So this headlight is ready to clean up and then just reassemble, put the front lens back on. Once you have the rear side of the housing reassembled, all the wiring and everything, you can go ahead and clean up the front, make sure there's no dust or anything in here. Make sure the front lens is clean and free of fingerprints. Nothing worse than a fingerprint on your projector once you got the headlight resealed. So we're just gonna go ahead and clean this up. Make sure it's solid, and then you can remount the turn signal reflector on there, drop it down over the bulb carefully, and line up the 2 screws here and here. Go ahead and just get these tightened down. Cool, and we're good to go. Go ahead and put the front lens back on. We're going to put some glue in between this junction right here, and we'll go ahead and reheat the housing all together and put it back together.